what mind shift can we practically take? And I love that he says, have something to learn, not something to prove.
Welcome to the Recap Book Chat. We are a mother and daughter duo
conversing about books over a cup of joe.
seeking truth to help us glow.
Ready, set, let's grow!
Thank you so much for stopping by today. We are diving in to the next conversation, Argue Less and Talk More, a book by
Jefferson Fisher, a trial lawyer that wrote this book because of his following on Facebook, where he, during the COVID, I guess that would be the siege of the COVID or whatever, he had these little short videos in his truck and he'd say, "So try that and follow me." And they asked him to write a book. And he did. And I would
And-
suggest the audio and the hard copy, but his audio is precious.
Oh, he has such a good voice. 2025, this came out. And what he does is he's taking these skills, these lawyer skills, honing them down into strategies for us, the lay people, and on how to communicate better. And I feel like this hits everybody across the board. We need to communicate better. Across the board, we've lost the art of communication. And he comes at it with such a fresh and such a kind outlook. It's refreshing, it's motivating, and it's very impactful. I feel like across your relationships, it will help every one of them.
You
Because
said relationship. I was going to read Shwani Girl. We had a very, very beautiful review, and she says, and thank you, Shwani Girl. I hope I'm saying that right. I just wanted to say I get a lot out of your podcast as a fellow reader. Thank you so much for the content you create. I also love that you're a mother-daughter. I admire your relationship. And that means so much because I did not have a good relationship with my mom. So we are trying to break the chain here and have that. But that really did make my day. So it goes with the book, relationship.
it does. So thank you for taking time to leave that. That means more than you know.
Yes, because we don't always say write a review. We hardly ever say that, so we just appreciate it. And when you go in, when you read his book, I was going to say we're going to do these really slow because he says to. I don't know if he said grow slow, but that's what I remembered. He doesn't want you to be overwhelmed by everything. So we're going to take Jefferson's advice and just do one chapter at a time. And then he says, just take one thing. And then when you get that into your arsenal and you're using that without having to think about it, then add the other one, not to be just overwhelmed. And I love that. I love that.
So we're going to do just a quick overview before we get into chapter 1. But I love that we're going to take it slow. I think that's good. And so the book is divided into 2 parts. Part 1 is essentials, which covers this never win an argument, control yourself. And then part 2 kind of applies that. And very practical, down to earth, very rooted in empathy and assertiveness. And it's really cool that is he a 5th generation?
I
His
think
dad?
so.
A 5th generation lawyer. So he grew up learning how to communicate and everything. And I love that he's passing that on, those nuggets. He's not holding it. He's not hoarding it. We get to benefit from this family knowledge as well. And I love it. Go ahead and kick us off. What is chapter 1? What's it called?
Never win an argument. And as someone who, when I was a little kid, I was either going to be a lawyer or a teacher, and I kind of like to argue as a kid. So I wish I'd had this advice. Never win an argument. And he tells you these through beautiful stories. And so one of my stories was the LaPray story, Bobby LaPray. And he said to the first time Jefferson met him, he said, "I don't trust you any further than I could throw you." And he tells how big LaPray was, how he really could have thrown Jefferson. And Jefferson is not small. He's like over 6 foot, but he barely came up to this guy's chest. He said the guy was massive. He was huge. But the beautiful story in that is he goes back to when he was a little kid in school, that he was a tutor for someone in his class that couldn't read. And he made that connection on his own. I think it might have been in 3rd grade, but it was very small. But what I loved about that, and that I've seen that happen where schools would have a tutoring program like that, but not like his was because it continued through the years. Like in 3rd grade, he was that guy was his name Evan? He was his same tutor in 4th, 5th, and 6th, and he got him where he could read and all that, but he realized the difference in his childhood and Evan's childhood because he said, like, nobody made him lunch, nobody read to him, nobody said prayers with him and tucked him in, and he saw that in Bobby LaPray, who instead of him getting mad, you know how people say, "I'm his voice," or "I'm their voice." It wasn't that way with the LaPray story. He gave Bobby LaPray Bobby's voice, where he gave him time. He gifted him time and space to grieve, and that was just a beautiful thing. I loved it. It said, "View arguments as a window into another person's struggle." And so when he got mean with Jefferson, Jefferson said, "What's the hardest thing you've gone through this year?" So, what did you think?
Well, before that moment, before he was able to say that, he practiced something that he has been doing, and that is the first thing you say is your breath.
Mm,
And so,
mhm.
because when someone's attacking you and, you wanna zing him back, and he wanted to defend, and so there's that initial, reaction, I should say, and you wanna respond instead of react, and so that's why the goal isn't to win or to dominate the conversation, it's to understand the other person, build a connection, and that comes from us being able to control ourselves. Because if we can't control ourselves, we're gonna miss that opportunity to connect. We're just gonna react. We're gonna miss what's really going on. So I love that even before he asked that question, there was a lot that happened in a few amount of seconds that he had to be like, "Okay, let that go," 'cause, LaPrey was wanting a reaction. He wanted to hurt him because he had been hurt by lawyers. So,
Hurt
hurt
people is what you
people.
said. But, it also connects to Theo of Golden. I think the guy's name was Kendrick, who was talking to a lawyer, and he said, "You never saw me. I'm unseen." And how many people in our lives are unseen, and Jefferson sees him, but he doesn't that just the power of the pause is unbelievable, but take that breath and let that be your first. Figure out what is going on underneath and giving them time. And this connects with what we talked about in Job, because you said in our society, people don't give time to grieve. It's like, okay, you went to the funeral, check the box. Well, really, emotions and relationships are messy. And if you don't put time in on that, then you're not gonna move forward. There will be no growth because growth is messy. And I just thought that was beautiful.
And it is hard because you have to lay down your ego. Because when going back to the winning, because if I'm right, I wanna be heard, I want all these things. That's ego. And so but that's not the goal. The goal, we don't wanna win, we don't wanna dominate. Really, what we really want, even if we're not aware of it, is to have that connection with other people. And winning satisfies our ego, but it erodes trust and relationships. And so,
And it's
we're not
very I would say it's very temporary too. Even if
very
it does
temporary.
satisfy your ego, don't wouldn't you say it's fleeting?
Mhm.
It's a very
Yes.
fleeting thing.
But that's instinctual almost. That's our base self that we have to fight.
It doesn't that
Almost
go
like
back to Cain and Abel? Wasn't Cain wanting to win the sacrifice? I wanna win. And that not thinking that God loves both of them, that Cain could do better next time, but just he wanted to win. And Abel,
which
if
is
we
ego.
change that mindset, think what, you know, mm,
I'm so we did the podcast on soul care, and we read the book, and I love the book, and I'm going back, and he has these updated videos that we're watching kinda slowly just to keep that front of mind, and it's so good. And yesterday, he said that. He was talking about there's this base our base instinct is pride. and that keeps us from God. The pride that we can do it ourselves. This pride, I don't need to go to God. We have to overcome that every day. And I thought, I didn't think of it that way. But when you have that in your mind, okay, I feel like you can fight it better knowing that you need to fight it. Like, okay, no, I need to humble myself. But that's a battle to humble yourself because you're overcoming a base instinct of pride. But it's
That
good to
may
be.
be why Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." We need to know how bankrupt we are. We need to know that and come humbly. And yeah, very
And
well
s
put.
and
Well
same with
said.
this. This ties back in to the ego of winning an argument, because you have to that's your base self, but you have to overcome that and think, "What's the better outcome?" You know, because we've all been there when we've actually won, and you may be like, "Yeah," for a little bit, but then you could lose that relationship. It's really not worth it. It's not worth it. So go ahead. You were talking about Bobby LaPray. What was the point of that story?
Well, I think I wrote that down, or maybe I just remember him saying it. And I'm sure you remember it. The person you see isn't always the person you're talking to. And we've all seen that little saying that says something about everyone is struggling, with something. And we just need to when he was looking at Bobby LaPray and he describes him, he's hardworking. But he had, and we don't need to tell his story because you need to get this book, guys. I mean, this will be a book that you probably need to take off the shelf every year and reread. Or also, this would be a great gift for any high school senior graduating or
Mm,
college. Would be
yeah.
so super. I wish I'd had this in my hand. I know teachers would be saying, are going to say, why did you do this in May? We could have used this in August when school started. Sorry. We're so sorry. But I think it came out after that, girls. But it is just that the person that I am having this discussion with isn't the person I'm talking to. What's under the surface? Have you seen that? You're always saying that anger is a secondary emotion. Have you seen that iceberg thing? The iceberg, and it has anger is what you see, and then down here is shame, guilt, jealousy,
Hurt.
what caused the anger is so and Jefferson was calm and he knew, yes, Bobby LaPray was angry. He was very angry. But Jefferson knew enough that he didn't cause it. What's down under the water, and he just respected that, and I just I love it. It was just so beautiful. It was one of those books I listened to it going to your house on a road trip, and it was so good that when I got back home, I was cleaning something. I said, "You know what? I'm gonna listen to that again." You can just start it over again because it's that good, and his audio is so good, but I still want the book so I can highlight something or circle it, whatever. What about
So,
you?
yeah, I think you nailed it, that's kind of that key metaphor that people have surface behavior. And so many times we judge people off their behavior, and we just take that as, "Oh, we just go for that, and we don't understand there's an undercurrent there. There's a real truth, there's hidden struggles, and they probably have a whole other conversation going on in their head, viewed from a broken lens of childhood. There's trauma, there's hurt, and when you're seeing things from a broken lens, you can't see the real picture. So you're coming at things from a skewed viewpoint, and we have to hold space for each other and let some stuff go and not be so reactive and give grace. I think that's because grace has been given to us. We need to be responding in grace and wanting the connection. I think a lot of times we write people off if they're not behaving the way we think they should behave. It's like they're a lost cause. And I'm not saying be somewhere where you could be abused or if anything toxic or going on. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying hold space. Let's hold space.
Let's think of people as a mystery. And you want to solve it like in a game of Clue, you're trying to find out who's did it. And that's what he did with Bobby LaPray is why the mystery is he is angry and the mystery is why he's angry instead of taking it personal, which connects with the Brant Hansen book Unoffendable. I mean, there's
Good
just some
connection.
really good books that would go, and that was the charm. I think that everybody was attracted to Theo was he didn't get offended when I mean there was one really bad incident. Someone actually took a portrait and stepped on it and all that kind of stuff. but it didn't stop him. He wasn't gonna stop. Well, I mean, how many times has God been offended? I mean, he gives us gift after gift after gift, and sometime I heard, Chris McCurley say, "If you gave your child," he said, "I don't recommend this, but if you gave your child when they turned 16 a brand new vehicle, gave him the keys, and then later on your vehicle breaks down and you ask, can I borrow the car? I'll take you to school, but then I need to borrow it because mine's in the shop." "No, that's my car. That's my car." That's how God is. I mean, he gave us all these gifts, but we don't appreciate it. God, everything we have came from God, but we're like the spoiled teenager.
That's a
I
good
just think
connection.
powerful that if we this went with Job. This if we shift our perspective instead of aiming to unravel the issue, we want to understand the heart of the matter and maybe the heart of your Bobby LaPray or whoever. There's something down there deep below the surface if we want to understand the heart of the matter. In one part, he said when he was growing up, his parents would say, "What do you want me to know? What do you want me to know?" And maybe that kid is crying, screaming, being ugly to everybody. Well, maybe they'll tell you. It could be a stomach ache. With kids, sometimes in school, I would ask them, what is going on? And they might say that their dad was arrested that day. I mean, I had someone come to school to take the STAR test crying, and I thought she was upset about the STAR test. No, her dad was arrested the night before. So just say, "What do you want me to know?" or "What's going on?" And just get under the surface because that iceberg, really, we don't even need to pay. Well, I guess you need to pay attention because look what happens with the Titanic. They hit the iceberg. But I mean, what's above the surface? We address that because it's low fruit. It's easy. We can pick it apart, do all this, but that's not going to help you. It's
It doesn't
under
get
the
to the
surface.
root. Yes, good point. And I like he talks about words are powerful, and we've said that a lot. And I liked what he said too, though. Your words will affect the next generation and the next generation long after you're gone. And we don't think about that because our words impact people. Like the words that we are talking to our kids become what's in their head and what they will pass down. And so it's our words are very important. And even at the grocery store, your words can if you're talking you can make someone have a really bad day with your words, and then they'll go home and take that out on their kids or their spouse with words. Or you can be a light and bring healing through a conversation and see that person. And there's something that's shifted, and I'm not exactly sure why, in our modern society. We talk about generational snobbery, thinking our time's better than the previous time, and that's not true all the time. And he mentions ancient Greece. Like the way that they had arguments, they really did want to pursue the truth through a debate. And
Mhm.
they would spend weeks on ideas, days on trying to get to the truth. It wasn't about winning over and then dismissing your opponent like, "Oh, I won. I'm better." It was like, "What's the truth of this?" They didn't really care who won. They cared about the truth. And somewhere along the way, we've lost that. And I don't necessarily care what the truth is as long as I'm winning. And that's not good. That's not good for anybody. I feel like if we could go back to that, let's seek the truth. Let's hold space for people because you might not be right. You might have it completely wrong. Why not listen? What's the other side of this argument and holding space? And I think that would be a lot healthier way for our society to be.
I love how you framed that. Way to go, Kate. Way to bring out that is so powerful. Seek the truth. Seek the truth. And you're so right. People want likes and they want, they are not looking for the truth. They're looking for shallow, but seek the truth. Powerful. Thank you for bringing that out.
Yeah.
Love it. He also said conflict should be seen as an opportunity. And I'm not good at this. Disagreements can lead to growth. As a kid growing up like I did, I wanted to avoid conflict at all costs. And the only time that I did kind of embrace that was when I became a Christian. I did say, well, I'm going to church. And I did do that, but it came with conflict. And I'm not a person that some people I think do like conflict. I don't like it. I have a dear friend, her name is Debbie Bailey, and she used to say, "I'll go by way of Dallas Fort Worth to avoid a conflict." Of course, you live down that area. That's not much for you, but if you're in the Panhandle, that's saying a lot, and I feel the same way. I don't want confrontation, you know, and
But that's
so
because you grew up in an abusive environment, and so conflict for you is unsafe. So that's when you hit conflict, that's a trigger, and you just that's a thing that you have to overcome that this is different now. But as a kid, that was you weren't wrong. That conflict was unsafe as a kid, and you had to survive by avoiding it. So you did great as a kid to do that, and now you just have to tell yourself, "I can let that go." Conflict and you have to reparent yourself and
mhm.
reframe that. Like you said, you know what? Conflict is an opportunity. But I think you literally have to tell yourself, "It's okay. I'm safe this is an opportunity to kind of because I feel like that's just an automatic trigger that's gonna just elevate your fight or flight, and he talks about that too.
Yeah, and he does say childhood influences break negative cycles. So you can break those negative cycles, but like you're talking about, it is work. I remember Jamie Winship, he'll say, What is the voice you're listening to in your head?" I mean, that is powerful because, and Dr. Phil said it before Jamie Winship says, you're playing that record over and over. He said at one time, you're saying it over and over. And he'd say, "How's that working for you?" And yeah, it doesn't work. It cripples you. And I think if we learn to just say, "Okay, that was then, this is now. That was then, this is now." That doesn't mean you can't grow beyond it. I mean, I think Jefferson had such a good way of, how we always say, I think it was Tennille that said, "Stories stick and facts fade." He tells you facts through story. That'll stick. That'll stick in a very humble way because he gives at the beginning of the book, he tells you, I am not this, I am not this." He tells you what he's not. He's not an expert.
He's not a
I'm
therapist.
Yeah, he tells you all of that, but now research is coming out how in the 60s and 70s, they would have people go to the therapist every week and just talk and rehash the bad over and over again. Well, it's coming out that that's not good for you. That's not good. Well, you're not going forward, you're not doing anything different, you're just rehashing that, and they're saying, "Well, that's not very growth-minded. That's just you're
You
in a
you gotta
rut."
you gotta get it out. It's not good to stuff, it's not good to hold it in, you gotta get it out, but then you're right, move forward.
And I found these 2 recipes, and I thought I would do cook 2 recipes at the same time. I do that, I know that's not gonna and I'm going back and forth between the 2 recipes. I think it's fun because it's challenging. Yeah. Uh, and so in sourdough scones, I forgot to put the sourdough. And you're saying, "Why are you doing 2 at once?" I don't know, it's just fun. It's just like doing a Sudoku puzzle while watching a mystery, still trying to figure it out. I don't understand it, but he says start small. So we've talked about that, and we know that it takes time. But the other one was he said, "Start today. As soon as you read a strategy, look for opportunities to use it in your everyday life, in your next text, your next email, even if it's addressing a relatively small, mundane issue, it could be the perfect time for you to start something new." And I loved, he said, your next text. And he talks about that. I mean, he is, it's applicable to wherever you are. If you're a busy mom, if you're a teenager, if you're a retired person, or if you're all stages, ages and stages could just benefit from this by, in your text, because he says texts do not show tone. And he talked about that. And have you ever thought about that? Yeah, because have you ever gotten a text from someone and you say, "Well, that's kind of curt." But then I always say, "But it's a text." And, but you're right, words matter. But he's saying the face to face is so much better because even talking, you do have tone. If you're on the telephone, you sense the tone. But my daughter-in-law, she said, "Well, that's what emojis are for."
Which they do help. I think that is why they're for. She's not wrong. So, yeah, to add to that, like practically, what mind shift can we practically take? And I love that he says, "Have something to learn, not something to prove." And
Powerful, powerful.
yes, I love that. And that ties in with Jamie Winship. You brought up Jamie Winship. He talks about how self-promotion is an indicator you have a false identity. So that if you have something to prove, that means you're probably operating in a false identity if you're trying to prove something. And I didn't think about that until you said Jamie Winship, and I was like, "Oh, it makes sense." If you that and a lot of us, the majority of people live in false identities. So of course we're walking around with something we're trying to prove that we're worthy because we have the wrong identity. So I do encourage if you have not read Living Fearless, that again, so good. Jamie Winship, and he goes through some identity work because really everything flows through identity. And so I would really start there because sometimes all we're still going to try to you got to break that. You have to know who you are in Christ to be able to not have something to prove.
Did you know where God started that in the Garden of Eden? If Eve had been confident in her identity in him, would she have wanted to know more than God? Like Satan caused her to doubt, and she had relationship. Her and Adam had relationship with God. And that was the pinnacle. I mean, that's what we're all wanting, and that's what God wants. He gave them everything. I mean, every time and we don't realize that it was perfect. It was perfect. They didn't know what a thorn was, a grass burr, a drought. They didn't know any of that. Then death entered, and every loved one you have that has cancer, is suffering, has dementia, all that is death. And it came in
Because
because
they doubted God's goodness,
and their
essentially.
identity was not in him. So they thought they had something to prove from the very get-go. Yeah, in jail, they keep saying because you pull in an Old Testament scripture and it'll go with the New Testament and everything. They'll like, it's like one person wrote this whole book. And I said, they did. It was God. But it is amazing. God amazes me every single day. But everything goes back to that. You got to know before you got to start in Genesis 1 when he was creating everything. You got to start there. Some people start in 3. Well, yeah, Eve ate the fruit. I don't know. But God, it was beautiful before. And then death and sin changed it all. So I think what it can be broken, and you may be dealing with a person like Bobby LaPray who was broken, but when Jefferson uncovered why he was broken and gave him space, it is a beautiful story, even though you may say, well, I'm communicating pretty well. I don't really need that. Who's to say? Maybe it makes me think of Esther. Who's to say at this time? I feel like God puts the right book in your hand at the right time. I mean, is he amazing or what?
Oh, yeah.
I just downloaded this book on my way to your house, and I had low expectations because, I'm thinking, well, I'm retired. I mean, I really don't think this is gonna I could have used this 40 years ago. Thanks, Jefferson. You weren't even born then. But it was amazing. So, I mean, we never wanna stop growing, and we never wanna stop helping other people along the way, but I do think grow slow. Baby steps, as Fly Lady taught us years ago. Baby steps are important. And that's what God if you read the Psalms, that's a great place to just like baby steps. You read 8 verses or something, and you just so everything always goes back to God because I mean, it's amazing. Reframe your arguments because if I loved what you said about seeking the truth, and in an argument, I might be seeking to understand, to connect, to grow, but reframe it not to win, like you said. And that's going to be hard for us because and some more than others if you have a very competitive spirit, but if we reframe it like you said, that will help us exponentially.
If you can take that competitiveness and you can shift it from the person onto unraveling the knot of understanding the heart of the matter. And it really like, we're reading Maniac McGee out that's our read
Mm.
aloud right now, and there's a part in there's this huge knot that n for years, no one's been able to undo at this pizza shop, and you get pizza for a year if you can undo this knot, and it's been outside, It's this huge knot, and I love that Maniac because he has the patience and he sees things differently than most people, and he's able to unravel this knot, and I think that's what we need to see when we see people, this knot, and see it as a way to let's let's put our that competitiveness instead of against people, let's change that and put that into unraveling this knot, like, okay, like, because it's a challenge to understand the heart of a matter. What's really going on? Okay, where is this coming from? Because that seemed like an overreaction and instead of writing the person off like, well, they're just cuckoo. It's like, what's really going on? Like you said, what's under the iceberg? But I do like the visual of a knot because when you see a knot, my reaction is I don't want to deal with it. Because it's a knot. It's challenging. But you have to undo a knot, you have to give it you can't pull on a knot. You can't be aggressive with a knot. You have to, "Okay, we wanna unravel this." You have to get it loosened up, you have to try to understand what's really going on in it. And I think if we can take on that perspective with each other, it would be so much better.
Kate, that is a wonderful connection. I love it. And
Because a maniac.
I can't wait to do a Maniac McGee podcast. You know what? That even when you were talking about the knot, wouldn't that make a great painting?
Mm.
It would be
Yeah.
so wonderful because we all are a knot. We are a
Mhm.
knot, and that the fact that, Jerry Spinelli brought that into this poor orphan boy who has a lot of knots in life, and we're all just tangled knots. And you could even put that on a bookmark, "Not giving up on you," and give a knot there as your book if you're reading Leo Tolstoy, War and Peace, "Not gonna quit, not gonna."
Yeah.
But
There you
I could
go.
have used that, yeah. Every book could be a knot to unravel. I love
Mhm.
it. Well said. Oh my good, you're on a roll today, man, bringing the heat, man. Woo, great.
Well, any final thoughts on chapter 1?
I mean, I think that knot is where we ought to stop because that knot was powerful. I just thank you for not quitting on your mom and encouraging me, but wow, I think that's I'll just put an amen on the knot. What about you?
I think let's try to control our reaction so the next conversation can be better. I liked what you said, putting that into practice, the small steps. So let's just try that. I think our first thing is controlling ourselves. Let's try to control our reaction. That's a wrap on chapter 1
Yes, and
of the next conversation.
we're grateful for your, uh, ear. I say the ear because, we're grateful for you have ears to hear, and we hope that this will grow you, and let's connect.
To reflect.
Catch you on the next one.